Hey team, and welcome back. So the question is, were ancient Egyptians white?
Not even close, homeboy! No!
Nope. Sun is way too crazy, even back then, to have such fair-skinned maidens. And there you go. Women in antiquity were more than likely and very reasonably the same complexion as men. So thanks for watching. But they were painted that way. Correct. And not just Egyptian. Women portrayed as being fairer complected is a trend seen throughout the ancient world. From antiquity to Asia to the Adriatic and everywhere in between. So, come, let us reason together today on Studio-214.
Are you ready? Grab a brush. Give me a hell! Give me a yeah! Let's paint right now!
So, recently, a recreation of Nefertiti's bust was made using 3D scans of her mummy, which, let me tell you, caused no short amount of controversy. So what gives, bro? Nefertiti was an African queen. Surely her skin was dark and her features non-European. Right, bro? Well, as it turns out, women throughout antiquity were portrayed as being fair-complected. We can see evidence in this in Egyptian art from the Old Kingdom and a number of different pieces. Like this sculpture of Rheotep, circa 2575, 250 BC, round about then, to the Judgment of Hunefer in the New Kingdom more than 1,000 years later. And this trend extended beyond Egypt's borders. Here you can see a Minoan fresco called bull leaping. Here you can see a male with telltale dark skin leaping over a bull with two women on the side, very pale and a stark contrast to the male. Here again we see another example of this trend. This is the Hagia Triada sarcophagus, and it shows again males as dark and women as fair. And art through the ages, literally the textbook for art historians. I know, cause it's my textbook. And here, I will read an excerpt. If you're following along at home, it's on page 89 under figure 4.8. It reads, "The women have fair skin and the men has dark skin, a common convention in ancient paintings." So, women in ancient Egypt were more pale than men, right? Again, that's not an informed conclusion. In fact, it doesn't even really make any sense. We know that members of any ethnic group are going to share DNA, which can be tested and the similarities shown. Children look like and share the DNA of their parents. So, in isolated ethnic groups like in antiquity that didn't intermarry or have children with anyone outside of their ethnic group, nation, or city-state, in fact, many of them were strikingly racist. Their skin color, determined from their genes, is not gonna have wide swaths of differently pigmented children on a gender-specific basis. So what's up with those paintings anyway? The women were the same skin color as the bros. So why weren't they painted that way? That's exactly the question I asked my professor, and his answer? Nobody knows, which kinda sucks. Everyone wants some certainty and some concrete answers, and well, there just aren't any. So let's talk about speculation. And just know that whatever you think, that's okay, because nobody knows for sure. Turns out that making funerary art is expensive, and the kind of society that could support an artisan class in antiquity was few and far between. But guess what? Whoa! What? Egypt was one of those places. But still, not everyone could afford their own artist. Much like today, and when your written language is in pictographs, your artists are also your scribes. Let me tell you, learn hieroglyphics? That is no walk in the park. There's over 700 to 800 different symbols. We have 24 in English, and people still don't be spelling right. And let me tell you, you had better get it right. People's afterlife depended on you writing the right thing in their Book of the Dead. People's afterlife and how they spent eternity was all based on the magic and incantations written in your spells found in your tomb. So only nobles, royalty, and high officials could afford to have a tomb decked out with all the necessary spells and incantations to ensure a happy afterlife. Which often means that we are seeing depictions of royalty. And what are you going to do? Are you going to portray them as they actually are? Or are you going to make them look good? Idealize them. To idealize or not idealize? This is a question that still gets brought up to this day in modern portraiture. Not so much in Egypt. There was no question of whether or not it was going to be done. Is going to be done. They did the ancient equivalent of photoshopping their art to conform to the ideal versions of themselves. After all the art found in the tombs and in the scrolls for the books of the dead, those were all there to show depictions of what their reality in the afterlife was going to be. So everything was idealized because that's the way it would be in their version of heaven. Why, you ask? Because their idea of divinity is the key to their idealistic inclinations. The thing is, with these pharaohs, is they thought they were god kings, and so that's how they portrayed themselves, an idealized form. They valued kings who were warriors and who could defeat lions and who were dark-skinned from their daily training in hunting and commanding and other kingly type things. Not like the royal women, and definitely not like the goddesses who didn't have to work at all. They were idealized versions, strong, powerful, and all over the ancient world, pale. And the ancient women, like the men, idealize themselves to be like their goddesses. So I reckon, though I have no proof other than what was presented here in this video, that the reason why the ancient women portrayed in art were always so fair-skinned is because, for many different reasons, throughout the centuries and even today, light skin is seen as an idealized quality. Right or wrong, whatever you believe, that's just the way it was, and still is in some places. This being the case, the idealized form of a woman personified in goddess form was the look that patrons wanted to emulate. In European circles, many painters did the same thing with Jesus, painting him with gold hair and blue eyes, fair-skinned, beautiful, but probably not accurate at all. In fact, a recent study comes out that shows what a Jewish man of Jesus' time would look like. And this is it. And lastly, I think the conventions were held to because of the importance of tradition and the Egyptians' idea of the afterlife. The Egyptians definitely had a style, and their culture was very influential. You can see their influence all over the world in ancient art, which is the history books of antiquity, and so other artisans copied it, because that's what people do. The high culture and the richness of the Egyptians allowed for trade and a lot of it. And their stuff, because it was associated with being Egyptian, because, well, it was Egyptian. You guys, I can't overstate how wealthy Egypt was back then. They were a land of plenty, a paradise, and they knew it, and so did everybody else. So their culture got exported, much like America's does now, through trade. Put that all together, and what you've got is a host of dark-skinned women being portrayed as light-skinned, non-accurate, idealized version to match their gods and goddesses. That's what I think. But what do you think? That's more important. Let me know in the comments section. Check out my channel for lots of other cool stuff. I'm actually a painter, but most painters, at least those that take it seriously, are historians. You have to be. So I dabble. Consider subscribing for more awesome content. For Studio-214, I'm Greg. See you next time.